We are all from Hillsong Youth UK, so let me introduce you to everyone. I'm Jesse.
I'm Ashwin.
And this is the Society Crew.
What an incredible show lined up for you guys today.
For today's episode, we've got one of our youth leaders from Hillsong Youth UK.
Harry Phinda, guys.
Come on.
Harry, what does politics even mean?
Oh, wow. First off, deep question. So politics is the way society is formed. So it's a state of governance. So if you look all the way back, you had tribes. They had sort of like people who were in charge of where the cattle go or where the whole tribe would move, and then they'd have chiefs. So like if you look at, so essentially that is an evolved state of what that is. And we in the UK have a democracy. Yeah. So essentially we choose who rules over us, or who chooses, how much tax we pay, or whether you get a free education or not. And that's some of the things that I would say politics really sort of resounds around.
So what is politics for you, Harry?
So for me, I think politics is a really interesting place. There's so many different facets of it, and each and every single person has a part to play in it. So whether that's voting, for example, or whether that's going up for election in your local constituency, being a council member, there's so many different ways that people can get involved in it. And I think the thing that I love about politics is that it has a lot of power. There's a lot of, and we're lucky because we're in a place where we actually get to shape what that looks like and shape what society does, and and essentially how we live our lives.
All right, that's great. Right, Harry, just to get to know you a bit more, I thought we'd play a game.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool.
So you up for a game?
I'm up for a game.
It's a twist on hot or not.
Okay, cool.
But with more politics in it.
But wait, I've got a game that I want to play.
Big man, this is our show, yeah?
Okay.
Hey, it's supposed to be a youth takeover.
Yeah?
But it's my sphere of society, so I think we should. I think it's my game.
You know what?
Let's allow it.
You're going to let me do this?
Yeah.
And I need you guys. So you all have £100, right? Yeah. All of you have £100. Obviously, I'm not going to pull that out of my pocket. But because you'll soon realize that there's not that much money in politics. Essentially, you all have £100 and you have to spend it on 5 different places, right? And essentially you are the government of your couch. So this is your state, this is your country, and you have to spend £100. So for example, you have money on education, on health, on defense, so your police and everything, on international development, so for example, sending money abroad to help other people. And the last one will be on social welfare. Does that make sense? Does everything make sense? So you've got those 5, and you have to spend that money on that. So go.
Sweet. So it's the...
we're Zimbabwe, yeah?
First we need to divide... Okay, let's
I'm from Zimbabwe.
It's £100,
Wait, first we need to divide 100 by 5.
No, we need to split them up into how much each one needs.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. First, we need to do that, divide it by 5. So
what's the 5 most important? 5 most important? Education?
Okay, cool, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in a second.
Let's discuss.
Come back to me. So you have £100. Where did you spend it?
We put 30 in education, 30 in healthcare, 20 in defence, 10 in social welfare, and
10 in international.
Okay, awesome, great. What did you guys do?
Okay, we didn't set figures, but we did prioritise things.
You prioritised, okay, that's good.
So we said health and education and social welfare.
Yeah.
Primarily because education is important because it'll get people off the streets. And educated, knowledge is power. Health, everyone needs to be like on job. With their health, you have to stay alive, and social welfare because it just takes care of us.
The game was lit, Harry, but Harry, what do you think about what we said?
Actually, it's really interesting because that's what the government does, essentially. So, like you said, education is a really important part of your lives, especially all of you guys. Like, some of you go to school, some of you do apprenticeships. All of that has been made by governments and what governments do. So actually, as you've seen throughout that whole thing, like, it's actually important that you know what government do, or it's actually important that you influence what they do, because essentially, well, you said you were a corrupt government. Even the fact that you were able to say that, you don't know where your money's going, we actually don't, sort of by statistics means, have a corrupt government, which is obviously a really good thing because we know and we can go online and we can see where the government spends money. Yeah. And you'll know, if you look at particular parties' budget, you'll see where they'd spend money and where they would prioritize, just like you guys did. Because obviously you guys prioritize something different than they did. So automatically you have different opinions about what should be first and what should be second, which means that you're interested in politics and you know what to do.
That's amazing. We'll have more of that later. So So this part of the show is called Issues of Society, where we chat about an issue that we could probably all relate to. As mentioned before, we are talking about politics. So, let's hit it with a question. How is politics relevant to me? When I say me, I mean like the youth that don't find it relevant.
So the reason politics is really important for all of you guys and everyone watching probably is because it affects your daily life. So for example, when you go out and you buy a piece of chewing gum, for example, you know, there's tax on that, right?
Yeah.
So you are paying some form of money on that, and that is determined by the government that's in at the moment, as an example. The fact that, you know, some of you, for example, want to go to university. You want to go to university, and I know you guys probably know this, but obviously the fees for that has increased quite a lot, right? So obviously, you know, so it went from being free before to then being about 1,500 to then being 3,000, which is what I paid. Hello. And then it went to 9,000 pounds. So obviously this is stuff that the government have put into place, and it has a huge effect on your lives. And it's funny because, you know, you guys are probably going to live in some of the decisions that are being made right now. So the policies that are being created will affect you when you get to, you know, 25, 30, you start having kids, you know, all of these different things, and you start having a family. They actually have an effect on the way that you live your day-to-day life. So I think that's why it's highly relevant for you guys.
Do you think it should be free then?
Ha. Do I? Well, what do you guys think? Do you think
Yes.
Okay, right. Why though? Why?
I think that's debatable.
Because it's ridiculous, like some really top unis, it's like tens of thousands of pounds to get into a top uni, to get a better education. Maybe you're less fortunate, but you still have the ability.
Yeah. Anyone else?
The thing with uni is that you pay your fee to go to the school, and you've got to pay fees for accommodation, you've got to pay like transport and food, and that whole transition from being a teenager when you're just like settled at home to having to manage a whole ton of money throughout your uni years is a struggle. And we're like one of the very few countries in Europe that has charged unis. Like if you go Germany, all the uni is free, and the quality of education is just as good.
Yeah, it's completely different.
There's no point having paid if we have a good education system as it is.
Exactly. Well, that country over there, what do you think?
I think it should be free because it puts people off going to uni. Whereas in uni you can learn a lot of stuff what's not only going to help you and impact you in your life, it will impact everyone surrounding you and your country, let's say. So if you're making it pricey, less people are going to want to go. So then you're going to have a country of less educated people, so it won't be able to develop as much.
So it's interesting about this whole free thing, right? Because universities are already subsidised by the government, if you don't know that. So it doesn't actually cost £9,000 for you to get a university degree. It costs much more than that, actually. So it's already subsidised, and what's happened is they've taken back the subsidy in terms of how many times that they do that. So actually, you know, when you're starting to have these conversations with people, and you guys all have a really good point. I think if you ask me personally, do I think university should be free? Yes, obviously the reason that it isn't is because the government is getting more small, and corporate businesses and other stuff are starting to pay for more things. So that's essentially why, is because the government can't pay as much, because as you can imagine, more and more people are starting to go to university. So because of that, now the government is having to fork out even more money, which means that your taxes are going to get higher. There's 100% a sort of balance that you have to put there. Okay, cool. If you want university to be free, then you have to pay a bit more tax. Then if you don't want university if you don't want university to be free, you have less tax and then you have more fees. So that's the way it works.
Brexit.
Oh, wow. Everyone asked me about this. Well, again, I'll be interested to know what you guys think about it. She's like, get me in there.
I'm very passionate about this because like I've studied around the stats and everything. And I don't remember particularly what it was, but you had a large amount of 18-year-olds, I think it's to 24, that did not vote in this. And then you had a bunch of like old people who did. And when you look at it, it's like, hey, it affects me. I wasn't born in this country. But like my parents like moved here, and that's why I have the opportunity to study here. And like I think that people have such a stereotype with people who come over here that you don't even realise that maybe the people in your circle of friends might have come over here. And you just say, oh, these like immigrants, all these people who came to our country to steal our jobs, but actually they're contributing to our economy. And in terms of market, like in the economy, like it will isolate us. It will have a knock-on effect on what you buy in the shop. When you go to Tesco's, to the international aisle or whatever, like it will have an impact. And I just think that a lot of young people are kind of scared to touch on Brexit because all my friends are not going to think I'm cool, or like, what if I'm talking about politics and stuff. But actually, I think we need to voice our opinion more than ever.
Definitely,
and we're all like, or most of us are in that transition age where we're about to be in the like voting age. Yeah. So if anything, we should be like
100%.
Yeah.
I feel like we should be more educated in like the whole Brexit thing because like I was talking to my friends, it was like the only thing we're going to get out of it is more stamps in our passport, and I'm like, okay,
that's true.
But yeah, because like with education of like around politics, because it's like, as you said, it's like we don't want to speak about it because it's kind of like the uncool thing to do. But I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we understand, and the more like we get our heads around it and we're able to understand. But like that is like very true. Like the people that are voted out are like the older generation that want it to like go back to like how Britain was like the greatest and stuff like that.
Of course.
And like I feel like the younger generation need like their opinions voiced because it's like we're kind of sitting here like, okay, we'll just let you guys.
How does your faith have an effect on your politics and what you do?
That's a good question. I think for me personally, I think my faith comes into it a lot when I'm making decisions about integrity, and you know, so I can sit there and I can get a piece of policy or piece of thing that I can spin any stat. So for example, even the 28%, I'm quite sure someone can increase that by 30 and decrease it by 20, right? By the way that they do it. So I think my faith comes in it when I actually start, when I look at something and say, what's the most honest way to do this? What is the most integral way that I'm actually able to do this? And the other thing is also, obviously, you know, it's a sphere of society that needs really great people and really honest and integral people to run it. You know, there's so many times people have scandals about expenses, for example, paying too much money or holding money in different places. And you know, I never want to get in that position where I'm misusing public money or did you get what I mean? Like, and it's all about integrity. It's about the honesty that comes with it and the character that I honestly reflect from Jesus Christ that I'm able to display there. So when people ask me, why are you so different? Like, for example, if I have a team leader or a manager who really wants to get something done, and regardless of whether the team likes the idea or not, I'm going to be loyal to that person just as much as I'm going to be loyal to all my colleagues. So I think sometimes politics can look like this really dirty game. It can look at this really, you know, like that's really unpolished, and you know, like so many different people were stabbing people in the back. I'm there to represent Jesus and what Jesus would look like in that environment, and that's why it's so important. And equally for all of us, the way that we express ourselves and the way that we're Christians, even in this environment, is we go and we go to the polling station and we vote, regardless of who you vote for. That's not the conversation we're having, but it's being a good citizen. Like, does that make sense?
Long answers, Harry, if I do say so. But it's fine. I want your short, snappy answers on this one.
Perfect.
Does your politic friends know that you're Christian?
Yes, they do.
They do.
And it's interesting because I get a lot of questions about it, but they do. They're intrigued as to how I'm in politics and I'm a Christian.
Well, another question is, a lot of the politics these days are white, middle class, and they wear suits.
Yeah.
Why do they wear suits? Why can't we wear suits or something like that?
So I completely understand, right? So if you look at the face of politics, all you see is white, middle class, most of the time men, and you think, how can I relate to that? You know, how can I? But there's people in there who are starting to change. Like, for example, I can't sit there and just complain about it and say, oh, this is so annoying because there's no one who represents me. I become the person I want to see there.